Welcome back, everybody, to the Fit Identity Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Karpenko, and we talk everything on this show from being fit to who you are, therefore making up a fit identity. I try to bring up as many subject matters so that we can have conversations around them, whether I try to provide solutions, give you my past experiences, my clients, people I've worked with, what I've seen, what's going on, and also in my interactions and communications with you guys, all of that learning that coming together, I bring up here on the podcast. And one of the biggest things people have talked to me about lately is stress. Why do some people have it? Some people don't. How do people manage it? What does it mean? Like stress. It just seems to be the number one thing people are talking about right now in some way, shape, or form, no matter what they call it. Well, I want to feel good. Well, that has to do with your stress levels. Well, I want to be mentally fit. That has to do with your stress levels. My hormones are out of whack. Well, are you stressed? I'm not getting any results. Well, are you doing the right workouts? Are you applying the right stress modalities to what you need to be able to do in order to be as healthy as you possibly can in what you call a fit identity? It may be weight loss, it may be calorie burn, it may be fat loss, it may be feeling good, it may be showing up. It could mean anything to you, and that's the beauty of having a fit identity is what is it, and now how does this stress play an important role in you achieving what you want as your fit identity? Ah, that stressed me out just saying it, to be honest with you. It was a lot. And to be honest, going into this podcast, I felt stressed out. I was like, am I an expert to even talk on stress? I mean, I have stress. Lord knows I do. I've got things that are good and things that are tough, things that I stress about, things that keep me up at night, things that I wish would happen, things that don't happen. I have people in my life, and that's a pretty easy reflection of stress being existent, right? And especially being somewhat of a control freak, um, that's stress too, right? I can't control everything everywhere, and if you can't, well, that's stress, right? That's applied force, applied tension, right? Mental, physical, or emotion. All of that is applied. And today I just wanted to kind of talk about stress, talk about where we are, talk about how I manage stress, talk about, I don't know that I eliminate it because I don't think that I can. I just have to go through life because we're constantly in this world, right? Where we're in motion constantly. Things are coming at us from many different angles, and we're coming at things in many different angles. So I think it's kind of like a give and take, a reciprocal relationship that we have. And when I sit back and I think about that and I think about stress and managing it and where we are in this world today. And now we know that so many different things are going in many more different directions than we had in our past, that stress exists and it's become a bigger player than it ever has been in society and culture, in our day-to-day lives, in our personal lives. Stress exists no matter what. You can't get rid of it. You can't hide. You can't run from it. The only thing we can really do ultimately is manage it. And I kind of wanted to bring that up. Like I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to see how you manage it. So if you're listening out there, let me know how you manage it. Do you journal? Do you meditate? Do you, um, here's a funny thing. Do you lash out? Like, do you want to relieve that stress immediately that's being put on you by telling somebody to F off and just being like, boom, take that. I know that I can be like that at some times where I just want to be like, let me alleviate my own stress and let me just put the hammer down. Boom, off me onto something else, and that's how I managed it. So let me know. Let me know how you manage that. At the same time, you like, share, comment. Let me know all that stuff. So do all those things at once, get it out of the way so then I don't have to ask for it anymore, and we can move on into talking about stress, right? So let me tell you a little story first. That I think I was 26, 25 years old, and I was leaving Rochester, New York, and that's where I was born in upstate Western New York in Rochester. Beautiful area if you've ever been there. kind of sort of like the Finger Lakes region, but not. Um, yeah, but that's where I went to school. Had some great friends there, great time there. Grew up in the wilderness, but also grew up near water. It's just a really well-rounded place in general to have grown up at the time that I grew up. And when I was leaving, one of my friend's dads, who turned into a mentor for me at that time, brilliant guy. At the time, he's a millionaire, head of a construction company up and down the East Coast. So I looked up to him to be like, oh my gosh, this is a very successful man. He was a guy that quit college and was like, I'm done with it. I'm not going. I could make money, which, I kudo him. I give my, my hat off to that guy, like to Mr. Bell. That's who it is, Mr. Bell. Uh, and I was always impressed that he was a man that got things done. So when I told him I was leaving Rochester and I was finally going to fly the coop, get out, grow my wings, be a man, get out of Rochester, he said, come with me, Mike. Let's go for a walk. You got a second? And I was like, yeah, sure. I was always willing to listen to anything that he had to say to me. And it was one of those walk and talks. And I'm sure you may or may not have had these things, but if you've had them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the arm around you to lead you in a direction, and then it turns into a very deep, thoughtful, insightful conversation to which he explained to me one of the number one things that I've heard in my head whenever stress comes my way, and I want to be able to tell you guys this story. So he took me on this walk down, and we were playing golf, and I belonged to a country club at that time, and we walked to the parking lot. And as we're walking to our cars to put our, I think it was to put our golf shoes on, or not put our golf shoes on, to take them off so that we go back into the restaurant. And he says to me a couple things. So I'm going to give you a couple stories which are phenomenal. The first one he says to me is, "So you're leaving?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm out, man. I'm done. Like I can't do it no more. I just need something different." He said, Mike, I don't know why you're leaving, but I'm going to give you a piece of advice." And I was like, sure. He goes, whatever reason you're leaving, I need you to handle it before you go. And I kind of cocked my head and like, what does he mean? Like, why am I leaving? And I was trying to think, like, why am I leaving? And, like, is there a real solid, I'm leaving because of this? And at the time, I wasn't sure. But he says, here's what I need you to do. For whatever reason you are leaving, I need you to deal with that before you go. I need you to put it to rest. I need you to confront it. And I was like, oh, man. There's so many reasons I want to get out of here. He's like, I need you to do it, though, Mike. And at the time, I didn't understand it. He followed it up with, again, I didn't understand it until I actually landed in Florida months later. And I go, jeez, he's so right. Man, that's why he's where he's at. That's what makes him successful. But he said, if you don't deal with it before you go, it will come in your luggage and unpack itself. It will appear wherever you go, and it will continue to come with you along the way, no matter what your journey, no matter where you go. It will travel in your luggage and unpack itself when it sees fit to unpack itself. And I remember as a 26-year-old thinking that that was kind of like real deep, unheard of Confucius. I don't know, like it was information that I just didn't kind of grasp. It didn't fall on deaf ears, but it was too deep for me to even be able to begin to unpack and understand. And it wasn't until I was in Florida, when I was still upside down and trying to figure out my way and figure out what I needed to do in my life, I remember saying, God, man, I'm a mess. And I'm a mess because I didn't deal with that before I left. That I had some issues that I needed to deal with from a personal standpoint, from a family standpoint, from a personal development standpoint, in being a better person. I didn't deal with those things, so they came with me, all of them. And they all unpacked themselves at various times and different times until I actually confronted them. And that was the very first point in me understanding stress, was to confront it. So when I'm often given a stressful situation, I'm one to confront it immediately. I'm one to bring it up. I'm one to have a hard conversation, um, and deal with it. Sometimes it's not the right time. Sometimes it's not in the right way. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to confront and deal with things in a much more mature, communicative, open minded, but still upfront way. And it's been a very successful tool for me in order to manage my stress, was making sure that the things that were troubling me, holding me back, and that were obstacles in my life were dealt with, and that I made sure that they didn't come forth in my journey. And when you think about your journey, whether it's health related or nutrition related, fitness, workouts, or just world, marriage and life and business and career, and you think about that and you say to yourself, that's a journey. You didn't have to change cities, right? You didn't have to change states or continents. You didn't. It's still the journey you're on. And those things, if you didn't deal with them, they're coming along with you on that journey. And they're going to unpack themselves, whether you want them to or not, and maybe not at the time you wanted them to, but they're going to create havoc until you confront them, deal with them, and make sure that you unpack them so that they have a place. So they've got a bookshelf for themselves to live on, or a chest to be in, to be wherever it is. So please, if you take anything away from this, the first thing I'd like you to take away from this talk is confront and unpack. It's really important, because you don't want to bring those things forward, because if you do, all you're doing is wasting your potential. All you're doing is stifling the ability that you have to be as great as you possibly can be in any facet, whether it's your career, your relationships, your health, your fitness, all things that are, again, going back into that fit identity, right? All things that make up who you are, your identity, that make you fit. If you don't deal with those things, they will come with you, and they will make you unhealthy. So please take that as a consideration, as a conversation that you're looking at right now. If you're just listening to this, maybe take out your phone, maybe look into the notes and say, what are some of the things I need to unpack? What are some of the things that I need to confront in order to live out my potential, in order to get to a place where I'm thriving, where I'm fit for me? Because obviously, again, your fit, my fit, two different fits. Your identity, my identity, two different DNAs. So we're not going to be the same. But we can unpack and confront some of the things that we have in our lives. So that was that's like the first story I want to be able to tell you. And when I did that, it helped me lower the stress level that I had, the overall big stress level that I had in my life, because there were some things that were lurking over my head that were big, that required me to deal with them. Now, that was a problem with my mother. That was financial. It was debt. It was just growing up in the situation that I grew up with too. I was always just kind of like an outsider. I don't know how to describe it. I was great in sports, which made me feel great. But then the people I hung out with at home were, they were into music, and they were kind of like the rock and roll guys and the car guys. They all had cool muscle cars. They smoked cigarettes and listened to, went to concerts. And then there was me, wearing Adidas, weird haircuts, winning trophies, just being an athlete. And that was a difference for me. It was a constant battle of like not fitting in both areas. Growing up, my best friend had long hair down past his shoulders and listened to Bon Jovi and had a '67 Camaro. And I had really short hair with stripes in the lines. And, I would go to parties with him, and everyone would be like, who's this weirdo in Adidas and a preppy kid? And he would come to parties with me, and they'd be like, who's this freak, man? And it was really a true story back then. Freaks and jocks, like that's kind of the way it was. I also went to a private Catholic school, and he went to public school, but we were neighbors. It's kind of funny when I look back on it. We could not have been any more different. He was super smart in school. I wasn't. Um, he wasn't as athletic as me. He had long hair, I had short hair, blah, blah, blah. You get the whole gist of the story. But that was kind of a push-pull for me that I never felt like I fit in. But we were best friends. Don't get me wrong. But I just felt like out of touch. And I also went to school with wealthy kids, and I wasn't wealthy, and I felt out of touch. So there was a lot of moments feeling out of touch, and I feel as though I was one of the first kids that was divorced. Like I had a divorced family too. It was an odd time to grow up. I know most people are like, oh, what's divorce? Like everyone gets divorced, separated. Single parents, they live it wasn't back then. Remember, I'm an old guy, and it was just a different moment in time. So that unpacking all of that, long story. You guys are into this, and I hope you're still listening. But dealing with that large, big overhead stress, helped me, move forward, and it was a big deal to me. That's all I can say. So unpack and confront. The other story that he also told me on the same walk, crazy, right? Like I don't know. He must have. Maybe he was reading a stress book at the time. But the next story that he told me was, he said, Mike, I just want to give you this little piece of me so you can understand stress in your life. Because I think he could just see that I was stressed. I don't know, but I guess that's what great successful people do is they're able to read other people, and he was one of them. And he had skills, and he still does. But he said, Mike, there are two types of people in this world when it comes to stress. He said, there are those that can manage stress and those that cannot. And I was like, yeah, I can manage stress. I can do it. That was my 26-year-old confident self. And he said, those that can manage stress are very successful. And those that can't are managed by those that can. Followed by, I want you to ask yourself this question, like every time you're in a stressful situation. Is what you're dealing with, is what's coming at you, is what you have in front of you, is it managing you or are you managing it? And he says, if you can answer that question, you can begin to manage it. And if you manage that well, Mike, you'll be successful. That stuck with me. I have never taken that out of my mind. From 26 to where I am right now as an older guy, I've never taken that out of my head. In everything, in contract negotiations, in relationships, in friendships, in work, everything that I do. I say, am I managing it or is it managing me? Am I managing it or is it managing me? And I started to realize that in the beginning, I was wanting to manage it with really tight hands because I'm a control freak, right? And if you like control, you understand this. You want to manage everything. And what I thought management meant at the time, which I later learned I was wrong, was I had to put big effort into managing everything that stressed me out. But the reality was, I didn't have to. What I had to do was manage it effectively. And what that meant was some situations, sure, they required me to put a lot of time and effort into managing the situation, where others could be as simple as just saying, I choose not to deal with it because it's not important to me, or I choose to put it in a certain bucket and I'll deal with it at another time. At that point, it was managed. And when I started to understand that I didn't have to put all this time and energy into everything that stressed me out or everything that provided stress in my world, tension, force, and that I could put it in buckets and that I could recognize it, move on. I could either deal with it because it required a lot of my time and effort. I became very effective in managing my own stress. Very effective. And ultimately, because I have this attitude that I don't want other people to manage me and I want to be successful, I knew that I had to manage my own stress. Like I knew it. Like that's just the way that it was, that I had to, you know, step in, that I had to be that guy. So those two things have been some of the biggest eye-opening stress management tools that I've ever had given to me, which I wanted to be able to give to you guys today to use. You know, if you're not already doing this, both those things can be, you know, very helpful. Address and unpack, confront and unpack, and then manage, right? And then how do you manage? And those are like really two big, big, big things to me that were giant. And oddly enough, later in my life, and I want to tell you one more story, just because it all just goes along with stress. I was in one of the biggest battles of my life. I was having issues with a company um, that I did an in-home fitness program with that licensed the name Tap Out to be able to use Tap Out, and I had a big confrontation with them. And at the time, you know, they were just coming at me, and then at the time, right after that, I was actually having the IRS audit me. So it was like a double-edged sword where I was going through both things at once, and I was just so stressed. And my attorney at the time, which happens to be one of my best friends, Rich Ginsburg, shout out Rich Ginsburg, man, you're a stud, who's kept me out of so many bad deals and negotiations. So shout out Rich Ginsburg, dude, you are the man. Um, he said to me, he goes, Mike, you are stressed beyond all belief. And I couldn't manage that situation. No matter, I'm like, oh, is it managing me or am I managing it? And I'm trying to manage it. And I told Rich that story, and he said back to me, he goes, Mike, you're trying to manage something that you can't manage. Let me explain something to you. And I said, all right. And he sat me down, and I was in a bad place. When I mean bad, like anxiety, I literally ended up in the hospital, or what I believe today was two very awful panic attacks, but I didn't know it at the time. I ripped a medicine cabinet off the shelf. That wasn't a good thing, thinking I was having a heart attack. And then I also, I was on a plane once, and I thought they were going to have to land a plane because I had no idea what these things were. And then what I did was I went vegan because they couldn't tell me what it was, and they kept telling me that I should take medication. And I'm like, this ain't happening. So in one instance, I quit sugar, alcohol, and went vegan for 2 years trying to figure out this. But one of the best things that happened was Rich's conversation to me is that he said, here's the deal, Mike. This is what I need you to have to understand. The problem that you have right now is like a tree in your front yard that needs to come down, a very big, large tree that is on the border of both your yard and your neighbor's yard. And what I need you to understand is that you're the type of guy that just wants to come in and push the tree over, knock it down, do whatever you need to do. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I just want the tree down. And he said, well, here's the problem. You don't have the money to do it. You don't have the power to do it. You don't have the ability to do it. You don't have the knowledge to do it. And you don't have the tools to do it. So that tree is going to stay. I breathed deep and was like, man, well, that's depressing, dude. I thought you were going to tell me a story that you're going to get me out of this on. And he said, but what you do have is the ability to look at that tree and the ability to understand that if you knock this tree over right now, you'd be in a whole different world of trouble. Could fall on your neighbor's yard, could fall on his car, his house, her house for that matter. But he said his at the time. He said that you wouldn't know what to do. You wouldn't know how to cut it up. You wouldn't know how long it would cut it up. You don't know if the roots would come up. It would wreck your driveway. You know nothing. All you want is the tree down. You don't understand the other problems that are going to happen. But what you do have is you have an axe, Mike. Yep, it's not a chainsaw, it's an axe. Because you're a good person. Because you're smart. Because you're intelligent. You're sharp like an axe, Mike. And what I need you to do is I need you to walk up to that tree every day and take a swipe at it. Maybe some days take 2, others 3. But you're not going to swipe at that thing for 24 hours, 48 hours, for nonstop and knock that tree over. I need you to keep that axe sharp, and I need you to use it efficiently against that tree. And over time, Mike, what's going to happen is you're going to chip away at the trunk of that tree. You're going to understand how it needs to fall. People are going to watch you chop at that. They may offer help. They're going to see your consistency. You're going to talk with your neighbor about the journey of the tree and whether or not it's going to fall on his yard, your yard, how you can help each other. But you're going to learn. And before you know it, over time, that tree is going to fall. And if you don't do it that way, the tree will never fall. It'll remain there. You'll exhaust yourself. You will stress yourself out over that tree, eventually getting yourself in a deeper, more stressful situation. So I need you to stop what you're doing now, and how you're going to manage this is with a sharp axe. And you are that sharp axe, Mike. That conversation during that period of time in my life made me understand that managing stress, managing situations doesn't happen overnight. That there are moments that will take time. And success will happen because of consistency and staying sharp. That no matter what, you show up. That no matter what, you have energy and progression towards what it is that you want, what you need to do, what you need to manage. But thinking that you can get rid of stress immediately by pushing over a tree and not create additional stress is a farce. There's no way it can happen. You will create more stress. I would have created more stress for me. And over the next 15 to 18 months, I showed up every day. I wrote so many checks to my accountants, to the IRS, to my attorney. I got out of I got out of the contract and the bad relationship that I had with the people that I was doing business with the in-home fitness program. But 18 months later, I was free. All of that stress was gone. And the funny thing is I was doing the bare minimum in the beginning. Because that's all I could do. It's all the energy I had. That was the best tool that I had. But as the months started to pick up, I started to pick up momentum. I started to take bigger steps. Instead of steps, I started to jog, and at the jog, I would run, and at run, I would sprint. And what should have taken me years to fix and to rectify and to be over with, 18 months, everything was over and done with. and I was a new person. And that all came from understanding how to manage stress and perspective on stress. And I know that it's hard. And I know that you're all like, well, you don't understand my story. You don't know what I got to go through, and you should get it. I, all I'm saying is I get it. Your identity is yours. Mine is mine. I'm just trying to give you some sort of roadmap so you have a place to start to create the momentum and you have a place to have tools. I want to be your Home Depot to your fit identity. That's why I made this podcast. I figured that, you know what? I may be in aisle 14 working on what I need to work on. Well, maybe the tools that you need are in aisle 29. I want to be that person that's able to point you in that right direction. I want to be able to tell you, I got a tool for you and give you an experience or point you in the right direction of somebody who has actually used all of the tools in aisle 29 to build whatever it is that needs to be built, to build that identity, to build a piece of that identity, to use, to have that DNA structured into your fit identity. So that's what I thought of when I sat down about managing stress. And I started thinking about, and I just wanted to be able to share those tools with you, those stories today, and give you something. I mean, I'm obviously kind of like breathing and stuttering and stammering a little bit because of the fact that a lot of this is emotional for me, like to talk about and to unpack and to confront. I don't normally confront these things out in the public and to say a whole bunch of stuff, but if it can help you, then I want to be able to unpack it and confront it so that you have this ability to help yourself and to work towards your fit identity. So if you think that this podcast or this cast, this talk can help somebody else, please share it with them. It would help. Like, comment, say whatever you want to be able to say, but I would love to have any more conversations around. If you have any ideas or cool tools that you use to manage stress, please tell me. Let me know what you're using. If you've got, I don't dare say a hack because I don't know that you can hack dealing with stress. I just think, you gotta, it's got to be dealt with. But if you have a system, a plan, or something, I would love to know, and I would love to be able to share it with all my listeners, all my followers, and the people that are there, because your experiences, your roadmap, your plan, your systems, your success, and your struggles and your obstacles are really important to get out there to help everybody else, especially during this time, right? Where we've all got our share of obstacles. And I think it's important that we share it, and if I can use my platform to be able to share that and help other people, I would love that. So thanks again for listening. Appreciate you guys always. Appreciate that you're on your road to your fitness, to your fit identity, that you're working on yourselves, whatever that is. I do appreciate that. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you guys all soon.